Good morning. Thanks for stopping by. I'm trying something new today and recording outside, as you can see. I realized that when I was doing the recordings in the morning, I was taking time away from my writing, which is the thing that I did not want to do. Like, I would spend an hour recording the video, editing it, getting it all set up and whatnot, and that is not how I wanted to spend that time. I would rather record while I'm taking my lunch break or taking a break or something like that, so that, I'm just really not taking time away from writing, which is the thing that I need to be doing in the mornings. And so far, it's been going really well. Last week, I finished Lyssa's Vengeance. I finished a book that I've been working on for almost 5 years, and it felt very, very good to have that done. And I sent it to Mallory Cooper. She's super excited about it and going to start reading this week. I don't know when it could be coming out, but it could be soon. I already got the doc ready to start the next book, and that's really what I want to do, is just roll right into the next thing. Because it's just, I don't know, things seem so much better. What else have I accomplished? I am working through the edits on Retreat Hell. That's going pretty well also. The editor was very happy with the book, and most of the things I'm finding are filtering words, clarity. There's some grammar stuff that we agree and disagree on, and that's not a big deal to me. Mainly what I was worried about the whole time is if the story was clear or not, and are the character motivations making sense? Was there enough tension in the story as it went along? Because this is basically kind of a retelling of operations in the Pech Valley in Afghanistan. And there's a lot of that is basically just driving on roads, getting attacked. And that's not the most fun thing to read about. Also, trying to paint the picture of what the whole area is like, how the populace feels, and how they're responding to having this occupying force that's there, and people generally on both sides that want things to work out. Like, one thing about this series and the way it's set up is that there is very clearly a bad guy, and so we're working against the bad guy to try and make a better life. I think, like, as of today, I'm at 156 pages out of 350 pages. So I would imagine I'll be done by Wednesday with the editing. And like I said, it's been going. This is the kind of book that I just want it to be clear. That's the most important thing to me. Wordage and how the story is being told, and all that is to serve clarity so that will make more sense. So when it comes to editing, like, I could spend a lot more time on it, but I've also been working on this book for about 2 years, and I would like it to be done as well so I can roll in to the next one. Other things I worked on last week, I had been trying to come up with a story idea that would work for an anthology called Lost Cities, which was kind of a pulp plasma blaster, plasma sword kind of thing for Raconteur. And I like their prompts. I think they have fun prompts. I just did not have enough time to get this done. I finished the Insert Coin story, and then once I realized that this other story was here, I had about 5 days to write it, and was just not enough time. And I tried probably 3 different openings, and it just was not working for me. So I finally let that go and focused on the thing that I did feel was within finishing, which was Lyssa's Vengeance. I want to be able to devote time to short stories and trying different things. So I'm working on how to get that workflow down. And something that's been working very well, I'm still signing into another user account just devoted to writing. And it's funny when a friction point pops up. Like, I remembered I hadn't bought my wife something that I wanted to, and so I jumped over to, the browser and looked at Amazon, and I'm not logged in. Well, that's going to waste all this time logging in. And so I stopped and I went back to the writing that I was supposed to be doing. But I am working with 2 documents up at the same time, so that if one starts bothering me, I can switch over to the other one if I run into a block. And that's what I've been doing with editing on both of the 2 manuscripts as well. And I was trying to do it with the short story, but it just didn't work. So it was time to let that go. Let's see. Other things that I've been working on. I need to do some updates to my website. There was info on there about the Quasar conference that happened 2 weeks ago now already, and so I need to take that off. I submitted a proposal, kind of a interest that I am willing to do some online stuff for the Nebula conference that would be coming up in June. And we'll see what will happen with that. I cannot travel to Chicago this year, so I wouldn't be able to do anything in person. But it's fun doing this stuff online. And I think it's a great service for people that can't travel. So I'm glad that they're offering stuff like that. I also submitted the nonfiction piece about writer decks to Cephalo's Planetside magazine, and they came back, or I uploaded it. So basically it's in a place where it can start editing. They said it probably wouldn't be coming out until February timeframe, so there's a lot of editing that could be done, and they are very excited about the editing process, they said. So that's fine. We'll see what happens. I mean, the funny thing is that even in the last 2 weeks, somebody introduced a new distraction-free writing tool that basically looks like Final Fantasy. It's all pixel art, and when you pull it, it's like basically opening a game and writing inside the game. I don't know if that would actually help, but I might give it a shot. I don't know. I just didn't want to waste time dinking around with stuff like that, which is what a lot of this comes down to. I'm really trying to focus on the things that get work done for me and not do the things that don't. So editing video is one of those things. I don't want to spend a lot of time doing that. My format is mostly, all about podcasting, basically, but also having the video component, because I think YouTube is probably the best place for discovery right now. And one of the things I was joking with a friend about is that maybe we'll need some way to prove that we're real at some point, and the video could definitely help with that. I am a writer who's been working on these things for this amount of time, and I did not use AI, so you can go back and look at that. This week, I'm really focused on writing outlines for the next 2 books. So the next Grimm's War book is going to be called, I'm pretty sure, Advanced by Fire. And then Aeon 14, which will be the last Lyssa book in this 5-book arc, is going to be called Lyssa's Betrayal. I'm fairly certain we need to talk about that, but I think that's where it'll land. And something I really want to devote a lot of time to is just very clear outlining and summaries that go through what's going to happen in the books, what the characters' motivations are going to be, and what their arcs will be throughout the book. And that's something I didn't do well enough, I feel like, with the previous 2. And if I devote some real time to that, really get something down, I think it should make this writing process a lot faster. And I'm just excited about it. I am really excited to be getting moving on these stories. So definitely working on outlining. My reading has been, I've been having a hard time finding something to read. I had said earlier that I kind of hit a block with Shadows of Time, the new Chris Rocchio book, and just haven't been motivated to pick it back up. But I wanted something that maybe had the same sort of, like Rocchio writes in this very kind of elevated language. And I thought maybe I'll just go back to the source. And I've been listening to 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea by Jules Verne, which is something I had never done. I've seen the Disney movie, but I had never actually read or listened to the book. And it is so hard science fiction. Like it feels like steampunk, because so many of the things that he's writing about, I think steampunk writers have picked up that language and the verbiage that is used to describe scientific concepts. But imagining him writing that back in 1866, I think it was, or 1865, it is so on with the technology they had at the time and what they knew about the ocean, and the way that he describes different concepts like pressure under the ocean. The fact that he imagined scuba before scuba ever existed. He has thought of batteries, sodium saltwater batteries. He's thought of the fact that it needs to be electric underwater. He's thought of ballast and how that would potentially work. It's just really amazing to me how thorough a job he did. And I guess From the Earth to the Moon is even more so. I found a couple discussions of people talking about Verne as hard science fiction, and everybody seemed to say that From the Earth to the Moon is even more like that. So that may be the thing I read next. It's interesting how much narrative summary there is in it. Like, it's definitely not character driven. I would say that the character is established, Mr. Aronnax, or Professor Aronnax, I should say, who is just gung-ho to learn everything he can about the world. And when it comes time that it seems like some mysterious narwhale is sinking ships or attacking ships, he's perfectly fine with going out and killing it, which I thought was kind of funny. So there were some pieces that I was surprised were not in the book. So I get that Verne is a French writer, but there's no mention whatsoever of the American Civil War, and they're on a steamer, or basically the ship they used to chase the Nautilus is called the Abraham Lincoln, which I guess, like, I haven't delved too deeply into this. I guess that there was more politics in the book and the publisher had him take it out, which maybe worked to make it more timeless. But I am always interested to read things from the perspective of the time, especially on something like the Civil War. I've read a lot of Stephen Crane, but other than that, I haven't read a lot of other fiction from that time period. There's not a lot of dialogue. What dialogue is there tends to be speeches, which makes sense, I guess. Like, all the characters are just giving information about different things that are happening in the story and how things work and why they work and how Nemo feels about the ocean. This is a world where overfishing doesn't really exist yet. I mean, there's nothing happening under the ocean for the most part. So it's like this alien landscape that Verne gets to describe using language that people mostly know. But there is a lot of Latin phylum animal type names that I sort of wish that I probably should go back and look at it with a dictionary so I can really look up what it was and what he was describing, because I just imagine him with a book of various animal types and fish types and things, like just using those as he goes through it, but describes it in just a really vivid way. So I'm enjoying it a lot. I'm halfway through it now. We've pretty much established, we did the hunt for the monster. We have the shift for the characters where they, enter a new world in the Nautilus. We're getting information about the Nautilus, and there's been hinting that there's a dark secret to be revealed. It's sort of funny that Nemo is set up as like an adventurer billionaire, like we might have today. Although that concept, I suppose, didn't exist back then in the same way. But there was a section where they talk about how much the Nautilus cost to build, and it was something like 600,000 pounds. And I don't know how much that is in today's, I guess I should look that up. But there was one point where he talked about some shell that they had found that was worth like 80 pounds. I was like, well, 6,000 or 60,000 shells, or whatever. But it was interesting that he devoted some thought to that and how the Nautilus was constructed. And again, just very hard science fiction, like stuff that people that really want to get into the details and how things work would be very interested in. And the fact that these books were as successful as they were is just a testament, I guess, to the strength of wonder in a story. And if the fact that he presented something, everybody at that time could go out and look at the ocean, and I'm sure had daydreamed about what might be beneath the ocean. Submarines didn't exist yet, at least in the terms of the way we have them now. The Monitor and I'm blanking on the other sub that the subs the U.S. had, which weren't really submarines, as far as I understand it. I'm not a huge expert on that, but everything about the way the Nautilus is described, it's one of those things where, like the tricorder, predating the cell phone or even the Motorola design on the cell phone, that science fiction leads to something in the real world, and that's super cool. So in reading about Verne, and one of the reasons that he was not as well regarded in the US was because translations often dumbed down his language, apparently, and he was sold as, adventure fiction or children's fiction. And so I was really interested, I would like to read I'd like to look at maybe the differences in a translation that really focused on his wordplay or the way he described things. And I sort of stumbled into this mess of garbage on Amazon that was all this stuff is in the public domain now. So there were some things that were like updated version, modern version, And I just imagine somebody going through and like feeding it into an AI and telling them to update it. And I didn't even bother looking inside. I didn't care. And it was frustrating because I think if somebody did take on this project to do like a cool updated version by an actual translator, that would be neat. I don't know how well it would sell, quite honestly, when there's so much garbage competing with it like that. And just from an SEO discoverability perspective, how would anybody ever find it unless they advertised it like crazy? So that's been a fun and interesting read. I look forward to finishing that in the next few days. I've been reading a lot of nonfiction or just kind of getting back into some podcasts, but I'll move away from that again. Nothing has really jumped out at me except I can link it in the notes, just finished a really long article in, basically about AI in higher education and how just the impact it's having on higher education, and how a lot of us are, and students especially, are just unwitting guinea pigs in this experiment of what AI is going to do to us. In the same way that social media was sort of an unwitting experiment that nobody agreed to, it just came into being, and now we're reaping the consequences of a lot of that, and AI feels very much the same. But I digress. Again, to back up like how garbage AI can be, I have a project in ChatGPT for Aeon 14, so 14 novels, and it's very useful for what was this character's eye color, when did this character appear, things like that, and it extrapolates more than Notebook LM does. Notebook LM will only look at the sources that you give it, and I actually am starting to think that is better. Although it's nice to be able to just ask ChatGPT some stuff to kind of, jog my imagination, I suppose. But I asked it to make, like, one of the things we always include in all the books is a summary of what has come before. And so I thought, let's see what ChatGPT can do with all these books and how it maybe summarizes the story. And it was just complete garbage. It was absolutely useless. And again, a reminder that you got to check whatever these things do. And even when you give it straight up information, it cannot read critically. And even if it can read critically, I shouldn't even use the word critical. Even if it can read and sort of arrange things in a chronological order, it's not going to be able to make sense of any of it. At least not yet. And as somebody who's writing a series about the future of AI, I just have to imagine the period we're in as the very, very early foundations of what may become non-sentient AI. So, it's not my feeling as a user of it. Maybe an AI scientist will tell me different, but it just feels like it's not actively learning. It's still just synthesizing information that it already has and doing it in poor ways. And so as someone who, I have students working for me at school, I worry about their ability to get a job out there. It does feel like as this stuff gets increasingly shoved down our throats, the ability to sort through the garbage that it gives you as a human and make decisions about it and exercise judgment, that will be a useful skill. But you also need knowledge to do that, right? To have that judgment. So I digress. But that was the thing that definitely jumped out at me, is if you're looking at between the two tools, ChatGPT or Notebook LM, if you're just looking for information about something, I really would probably stick with Notebook LM. All of its dumb podcast creation stuff is a waste of time, but as something that will only look at the sources you give it and give you good references back to whatever it is you're asking, very useful tool. It basically gives you a world Bible right there, so you can jump to what you're looking for. And that's about everything for this week. Writing summaries, summarizing, writing outlines, and probably moving back and forth between the two of them, finishing editing on Retreat Hell, and then Mallory said she was going to start reading Lyssa's Vengeance this week, so that would mean there may be edits to look at next week, and then we'll have an idea of a publishing schedule. I would like to think I turned in a pretty clean manuscript. I just realized she asked me a question that I need to respond to. So we'll see how much editing is needed, and then maybe send it right to beta readers and go from there. I'm just curious how people are going to respond to it because it's been so long. So yeah, I think that's everything. Thanks for hanging out. I'm still just feeling great about getting up in the morning. And if that's something you're at all capable of doing, I can't control my time throughout the day, but I can look forward to and control my time from 4:30 in the morning until 7:30. And as I continue to do that, I get things done. So, all right. Thanks for hanging out with me, and I'll talk to you later.